on. John Seal is here.
I see John Seal. Welcome. So
he's not done.
Let us call the meeting to order at 6:30 Thursday evening and July 8th. And the roll call, I see Marty McLaughlin, Linda Andros, Chris Shipper, Pam Flynn hosting, and John Seal as guest. Thank you all. If you've had a chance to review the meetings of June 10th, I'd like to have a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Marty moves.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved. Okay.
Unanimously approved.
Thank you. We're going to make this a relatively quick discussion of where we stand because of holidays. Tiger Man can't attend, Robin Bates can't attend, and I suspect Susan may be away and Cam may be away, so we'll be quick. Just on Conservation Commission mission and Sustainable New Canaan, I think you got your tax mailers, you saw our little insert on recycling and what have you.
Yes, it was really nice. Very nice. Very nicely presented. Very concise, very clean, full of information. It was good. I liked it.
It was a good way to reach out and maybe, take a little of the sting out of your tax bill.
Service to the community.
Well, I don't know about that,
but. I sent you all a copy of an email from Robin regarding her next steps. She's doing a number of things, but I think it's best that we wait till the next meeting for her to update.
Yes.
Linda, I'd love to know if there's any further information regarding the river and pond testing from the science team. And
well, they did, their first day was June 2nd with a dry weather testing, and then the second was June 15th. They did all of the sites around that we identified that needed to be tested. They've just received some very preliminary data. So we don't really have anything to report, but they're underway.
Good.
They're going to be doing another one in July, late July, early August, and then their final in fall. The fall.
Beautiful. That'd be fun to hear their findings and to use that.
So they have 6 team members participating, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Harbor Watch is joining in on some of the visits?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Sarah and an assistant, Sarah Crosby, and she has an assistant also working with them because, they wanted to be sure that the samples were handled correctly.
Got it. Okay, excellent. Native tree planting will move on, food scraps recycling will move on, solar power installations will move on, transfer station master plan. One thing I did bring up to the first selectman was that given the American Recovery Plan Act and the potential rebate of dollars or reimbursement of dollars to the town, I did suggest to the first selectman that in his thinking through of how to allocate funds, that the transfer station could use another round of investments to help recycle more products and to reduce the waste haulage that's going on there. And among other things, there was establishing a swap shop, but also reverse vending machines for bottles, cans, and plastics. Expanding the food scrap recycling piece, all a series of measures that I think a good portion of the citizens of New Canaan would support and feel like we could do. So it was just a thought to put it there as they start to work through the allocation of those funds.
Yeah.
I think our budget is set for $24,000. It's along the same lines as last year's budget, just a little less. Again, mostly to support sustainable CT and water testing projects that we have ongoing, and we're trying to keep a long, timeline of tests going. Any other points that anyone would like to raise regarding the Conservation Commission? What we're doing, Marty? Good. Okay. Bristow Bird and Wildlife Preserve. The capital plan spending of 112 is was submitted and approved. Keith Simpson Associates are now working on the bid package for the next round of trail improvements and walking area improvements. And it is hoped that before that even goes out, that the raised walkway repair will be started. So work underway, which is good news in Bristow, or continued work underway.
You know, Keith came to see me today.
Oh, good.
And we're talking, it's a library talk.
Right.
Library talk. But he's a real nice guy. Very talented and accomplished person. So it's good to have us on our side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've done great work, and the quality of the first phase of work and the fact that we came in, you know, ahead of plan and under budget is another big plus for us. I don't know if you've been in recently, but the pollinator plantings have been installed, and thank the heavens that we're getting rain.
The rain, yeah.
We don't have to water them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so nervous early on. I must have been in there 3 or 4 times.
They could have just all dried up.
I hear you. I was hauling water, and I'm thinking, this is hard. So I'm glad. I think this rain will establish
for
them
a little while. Yeah.
And we'll be fortunate. I'm told that the fernery plan will begin before too long, and I think I'm going to use the Service League of Boys in a project way from the high school for the planting, and we'll see what. And I've been the head of the Slobs has reached out to Bristow to say, can we be of help in the park on a project?
Oh, good. Yeah, good.
I think it's I'm going to say Mary Corcoran, and her son is the Slobs leader, so it's pretty exciting to see that. The Center Crossing Pavilion is now funded, thanks to the Exchange Club and the Anderson family, and I would say Exchange Club and Exchange Club members and the Anderson family. So we'll push to have that put into the phase 2 process. And then a new piece of news, I don't know, none of us have been in New Canaan long enough, but there was a former principal of the high school named Jim St. Clair. Before that, interestingly enough, he managed the theater club, but he also taught Latin and Greek. So about 4 different high school classes have raised money, and I think they're on their way to raising $5,000 to $10,000.
Oh, good.
And they want to put a bench in and a pin oak, and we kind of even have a nice place for them. So
good.
Chris, I want to say one thing about the plantings that we're putting in and what happens when the weeds grow up around them, okay? I've been doing this for a long time on my garden. What I do, there's a permeable sheet of cloth you can put down that lets the rain go through. And on top of that, you can put mulch. And so what happens is you keep the weeds down and you get to see the beauty of the items that you planted. So you can do this in selected areas if it's of interest to you.
no, I take your point, Marty. It's known as a landscape tarp, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've been hesitant to do that because I don't know what it means for all the insect life. But what we've done instead was we applied about a 1-inch layer of mulch. I suspect that will help, but eventually it moves around and the weeds find a footing. And I think we'll have to keep our eye on that.
Well, it's something that you're right, you keep an eye on it, but the amount of weeds that are not with me is just tremendous.
Yeah, no, it's explosive. Well, you know, the Friends of Bristow on the pollinator pathway transferred $20,000 to the town. Some of that money was meant to go towards maintenance as well. So I think we'll have to keep our eye on that. And
maybe in selected areas, you might want to test.
In those selected areas. And frankly, having done those 2 areas, there are more areas that could use attention in Bristow. So good, very good point. And also, Marty, I think you mentioned at one point, we should have little plant signs so people
Yeah.
know what's been planted and why, in a
Yeah,
way.
we talked about that. Yeah.
Something educational in that regard.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I don't have anything else on Bristow. I think we touched on the fact that the birdhouses will, the bird feeders will be taken down and cleaned. And then I think we'll restart that feeding program again in September or so when we get through this cycle. Any questions regarding Bristow? Okay. Open space report. The Land Acquisition Fund received a $50,000 injection. That's the second round for it. And I shared with you my first kind of cribbed pass at an open space criteria memo. It's sort of a little more than the Plan of Conservation and Development writes, but it's short on data. And so what I'd like to do is insert, more factual information about how much open space is available, how much exists, and dial it up a little bit. I'd be grateful for any comments you have. I was hoping Cam will be on, but I will probably ask Cam to work with me to wordsmith it into a punchier document so that we can use that to support the Plan of Conservation and Development, which will start up in about a year's time.
Good.
Good.
So there's nothing on file now, no ordinances or anything that specify open space.
Well, there's the Land Acquisition Fund that sets funds aside, and then there's the Plan of Conservation and Development that speaks to preserving open space, but does it in
it's just not as detailed as you would like for it.
Not as detailed as I would like, not as specific in terms of we're looking for open space opportunities surrounding our public parks, for instance, or larger parcels, or water company lands that could be made accessible for trails or visitation. It's not done, and that report I wrote is so generic, but it's not done with detailed suggestions. And there's always this trade-off of how far you go in the suggestion cycle into the Plan of Conservation and Development versus what are you trying to broadly achieve. But any strategy needs to break down into real tactics and ideas.
Right.
And frankly, as the town accumulates in its land acquisition fund or increases it, it's better to have a targeted list than just whatever comes your way. So that'll cover that point. And I think now we should have a discussion regarding the leaf blower noise abatement discussion. And it's a good time for it. And John, I'd appreciate it if you'd share some of your thoughts. This is John Seal, and you're a New Canaan citizen.
That's right.
Of British extract.
No, I mean, I lived there when I set up my email address. Not my national origin. I'm from Old Greenwich originally.
Old Greenwich. Okay, not Greenwich. Got
it. But yes, thanks for including me in the meeting. So I got in touch because I contacted John Engel about presenting speaking before the town council to restrict the use of gas-powered leaf blowers. And I've just been doing some research about this, partly just driven by my own annoyance at my neighbors' overuse of these machines, and have really been struck by how harmful they are. So obviously the noise is incredibly annoying. These things are basically as loud as a jet engine. And the noise travels through houses, it travels through windows. This causes stress. It's been implicated in heart disease. So the noise everybody is familiar with. But the parts that I was not aware of is how polluting these things are. That these are two-stroke engines. About 30% of the gas they burn is spewed out unburned in the form of benzene and other toxins. The state of California has done tests that show that using a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour gives the same amount of pollution as driving a 2017 Toyota Camry for 1,100 miles.
God.
California also estimates that leaf blowers and other lawn equipment now generate more ozone pollution in the state than all the cars in the state combined.
Good Lord.
So these things are just incredibly dirty, and I mean, and not only the problem is not only the pollution they emit, but it's also what they blow up. So I mean, they're blowing up spores, they're blowing up ultrafine dust. They've been implicated in disease. The study in Martha's Vineyard that the use of leaf blowers increased the risk that their workers who use them would come down with bacterial diseases because of the ultrafine dust that they're breathing. That dust has also been implicated in cancer. So these things are a health risk in a lot of different ways. The third point that has really struck me in researching them is that there's a really material social justice issue here. The workers who use them I mean, when I go around town, every once in a while I see them wearing ear protection, not always. I rarely see them wearing masks, but the workers who use them are carrying these things all day long. According to the CDC, the maximum daily exposure that you should have to 100 decibel sound is 15 minutes. They're running these things all day long. So they're exposed to the fumes, the benzene, the carcinogens, the dust. And these people are primarily Latino, very often people who maybe don't have the language skills to be going off and getting other jobs. They're operating these very dangerous pieces of equipment with effectively no health protection, obviously no health insurance. And I don't think that we as a community should be exposing workers to this for the sake of blowing grass clippings. There is an argument that the leaf gas-powered blowers are necessary in the fall to blow leaves, and I can accept that. They're increasingly unnecessary at other times of year. I noticed in the latest issue of Consumer Reports for July, they've tested gas versus battery-powered lawn equipment, and finding that in many cases, battery-powered equipment is just as effective as gas.
I have battery power equipment in my garden, and I have it works very well. I don't have a blower, but I mean, I have all kinds of tools battery powered, and it's a godsend.
Yeah, and that's what Consumer Reports is finding, that these things now, I mean, the battery life is extended, the power is extended. So what I would like to propose, and what I would like to take to the town council, is to restrict the use of gas-powered blowers, except during the peak leaf blowing seasons of the fall. So you can argue that, okay, maybe they're still necessary in the fall to blow leaves, but they're certainly not necessary in the summer to blow grass clippings or clean driveways or clear off people's decks. My neighbor uses a gas-powered blower to dry his car when he washes it. And it's really, I mean, there's no need for that. And so Westport has a similar ordinance in the works. Greenwich has limited the use of gas-powered blowers. Larchmont has banned gas blowers entirely. Newton, Massachusetts has banned them. Southampton, New York has banned them. Washington, DC has banned them. A number of other communities are doing this. And I just think for the sake of noise, for the sake of the pollution, and the sake of social justice, New Canaan should do it too. So when I emailed John Engel about this, he suggested that I take it to the Conservation Commission first. So that's why I got in touch with Linda to try to get on your agenda tonight. So really that was my point, that it's, I mean, I think it's time for New Canaan to do this and to limit the use of these machines.
Fellow commissioners, your thoughts?
I think that having battery-powered blowers would be a step in the right direction, even though it doesn't answer all of the objections to the blowers. That would be a step, and along with that, you might ask these people to make sure their workers have earplugs and masks, as a suggestion. Mm-hmm. And I think that that would go over okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we do have, there is a noise pollution ordinance for the town of New Canaan. And that, you know, that has fines. I'm not really sure if it's, you know, if people are really fined or how you, you know, penalize some of these people for using these things, you know, but there is, you know, 45 dBA and 80 dBA during certain time periods. It's like, I don't know, it's 5-6 pages long. Mm-hmm. It doesn't address, of course, the social justice or the pollution. It just really talks about sound. Mm-hmm. So I think raising awareness of this is definitely important, and we should come up with a way to raise awareness of abiding by our town ordinance that we already have in place for noise, and then also the pollution and as you said, social justice aspect, which is a little sensitive, you know, but I think we definitely should do something.
Yeah, I mean, the point of the social justice is, I mean, the objection is going to be raised as, oh, well, this is kind of a tree-hugging, rich, suburban problem, that you don't like the noise. I mean, and this is going to harm the workers who need to use these things to make their, to earn their livelihood. And the point is that this is all about the workers, actually. And this is not rich suburbanites discriminating against poor Hispanic lawn workers. This is actually for their sake as well, because they're the chief victims of these machines.
John, I'd like to, you know, I like your points. I think that, and I think you're an effective spokesperson for this argument. I think you have a potential partner in Robin Bates Mason and in Carl Mason, who sent out a, I'm not quite sure, not a survey, but a form where he requested people to sign in and say, we need a leaf blower abatement.
A petition.
I would make a couple of suggestions. One is that you should focus on a glide path to a ban. So in other words, a 2-year or a 3-year plan to move entirely away from gas powered as opposed to an immediate halt, I think would make more sense. So thinking through the rolling out of this program. I think there's a second point, which is probably more effective, which is it's not really fair to blame the land care community for using gas blowers, but it would make more sense if the people who are buying those services would be more attentive to the noise and would request their land care operators to use battery powered out of respect for their employees' health, but out of respect for their neighbors. So I think if and I think that if 10 good customers of a land care company say, hey, I prefer you use battery, that land care company is going to shift to battery. Even if it isn't for every one of their accounts, they're going to start using battery more and more. And I think the last thing here, and which is a higher order problem, is if we had a little less lawn, we'd have a little less leaf blowing.
Exactly.
And I think one of the other goals here would be, I'm not saying we can effectively rewild New Canaan, but I think a lot of people should think long and hard about the lawn mowers and the noise and the gas that they eject, as well as the leaf blowers and what they eject. And that if people just to dial back a little bit on the size of their lawn, that might dial back on the amount of time is spent in that regard.
There was an initiative some years ago to raise awareness for that, and also to use more organic fertilizers, et cetera. And to wildflower your lawns,
right. Pollinated pathway, things like that.
And so that is part of that, but I think this is more data to support that those initiatives and those ultimate goals that really the sustainability committee has.
Also, Now, that's a great argument, is to do this via a sustainability approach and actually raise a little, use some matched fundings to say, let's move on a program to reduce lawn equipment pollution and noise in our town. And there are multiple steps to do it.
So we could also come up with a way to enforce it.
Please.
That's what bothers me. I mean, they have good neighbor policies. They have something like a good neighbor policy where you raise awareness and you try to be a good neighbor, and you use that as a platform to encourage your neighbors not to use these machines, and certainly not to use them within the guidelines of our noise pollution ordinance already. So I think there's a lot that we could do to come up with a plan.
So let's see how we can help. Let's see how we can help this idea snowball some more and build up. One point you raised very good is the noise ordinance. And Pam, I have a question. Is there a way to find out from the town whether or not any noise abatement enforcement has taken place in the last 3 years, or whether any fines have ever been given for noise?
Sure, we can find that out.
I wouldn't even know where to go or who to ask for that.
Yeah, I think the enforcement is the police department enforces the noise ordinance, but I'll double check and we'll see what we have.
There are some hot rodders in Oanoke on Sunday morning that drive by while we're at outdoor church, that they drive up and down Oanoke. And I know, they don't have their mufflers, and I'd like to take their license plates and turn them in.
Yeah.
John, have you noticed those?
Just to jump in on this. Yes, to me, another issue for noise enforcement, and possibly even more significant, is the cars and the hot rod cars, because there are a lot of them, and you hear them at all hours, and especially people living near the Merritt must be driven completely crazy by this. Right. And I don't think there's any enforcement. I've actually been in touch with Will Haskell about really, the state sets the maximum fine for noise enforcement, as I understand it. And I think that fine should be increased like 10 times. And it should
I totally agree with that, because they're also going over the speed limit to get the desired noise.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna suggest we not go down that avenue on this one. And stick with the lawn equipment side. But I for one would love to see some Harley hogs with a muffler on them coming past my house on occasion. But Pam, if you could inquire as to whether or not any enforcement or fines have been done regarding noise abatement in the past 5 years, and I don't know, 3 years, whatever the record keeping might be, that would be one piece of information I think would be helpful. I do think that
it's not a very high fine. It's $100 or the maximum amount of the Connecticut general statutes. Right.
So, and I suspect
it's not very much. I think we should raise
I suspect the police department would figure that it would cost us $1,000 to put a $100 fine out, so we just won't do it.
By the fine would be $5,000.
Pardon?
The fine would be more like $2,500. Okay. So this fine is ridiculously small. But also on the noise ordinance, just to jump in on that. So I checked the New Canaan noise ordinances, at least the one that I see. There is a restriction, but noise restrictions apply basically at night. So it's after 7 p.m. and before 7 a.m. There's no noise restriction during the day on lawn equipment. So and I think they do observe that. They don't use them. I don't hear them before 7 a.m. But they
do have a decibel. They do have a decibel requirement. I don't know who's out measuring that.
Well, I don't see that in the ordinance. There's a decibel requirement of 45 dBA, but only during those times.
Yes, right.
So only at night, effectively. So during the day, I don't think there is any decibel limit.
8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. That's right.
So this would be different, I'm skeptical, frankly, that we're going to get make much progress by sort of asking people politely to stop using these machines, because I'm on this next door neighbor site, this sort of chat group where this issue has come up. And that's one of the things that motivated me to look into it. Mm-hmm. And it is surprising how many people on that chat group, when confronted with this information, will say, basically, screw you, I'm going to use my leaf blower whenever I want to. Right. And certainly I've spoken to the woman who's promoted this in Westport, and certainly that's the experience that they've had in Westport.
I agree. And I don't think, John, you're going to get there if you force it down. I think it'll be, you increase the resistance level, the harder you push on it. I think the game is, if I would be so bold, is to figure out how you continue to narrow it a little bit. I mean, it's sort of like greater restriction at a certain time of year, or try to get it from 12 months of noise to 2 months of noise. Kind of reducing that function. The second one is trying to get less lawn into the storyline, to start getting people to do more wildless lawn is a way to go forward.
Yeah.
And I would say the other one is to make sure, and I'm just suggesting this, is to put it on a glide path, to say we want to kind of eventually move there, and then set a goal, set a bold goal to say that in 7 years, we'd like to have 100% battery operated leaf blowers. And by that point, there'll probably be more battery operated mowers as well. Set these kind of goals so that people say, okay, well, I'm an early adopter, I'm a mid adopter, I'm a late adopter, but not everybody adopts all at once. It's always a process of substitution.
Right.
And
there is some reception to electric vehicles, to EVs. So
exactly.
Why shouldn't we be doing that with the other aspects of our lives?
Right. And then there's a follow through or an after effect of this, which is, do we have good systems for recycling old batteries? Do we have, what's the back end story? How do we still address the dust raising issues that this causes, or the bacterial issues? Those are still open questions, but we're dealing with what we can. So I am of an opinion, or I'd be willing to support a motion from the Conservation Commission, not in this session, but a thoughtfully worded motion that might give some impetus to the town council, or at least give Robin Bates Mason and the ordinance group a little more information to say, we'd like to take this forward and discuss it. I mean, the town only is just about to enact a plastic bag ban. So, this may be good timing. And I would love to find out whether we could get this under the Sustainable CT banner, which generally broadens your audience and broadens your support, and would allow the Conservation Commission to put some financial support behind this idea, which I think it also needs. Yeah. So let's say, and again, I'm just going to stick you two, but John and Linda, if you'd like to draft a motion for the next Conservation Commission meeting or the following, I would like to support that, and I would like to have it discussed and use that. I'm not trying to say I can't make it right now, but I think we need something thoughtful that we can hand over, and we can certainly use this meeting.
I think we need to be thoughtful and strategic about this.
Yeah.
And I think we should include Robin and Carl in the drafting as well. So
yeah, and I think if we go through that iteration over 4 weeks and come out with a motion that we support, and then and I want to be clear, I need Marty's support on it as well, and Cam's and Susan's, that we support this, and if perhaps unanimously, I think that will be a positive step in getting this ball one more turn, keep it rolling, and see if we can build up something.
Right. Sounds good.
John, are you okay with that?
Yeah, so basically, to be clear, I mean, what I was going to propose was that we restrict the use of these gas blowers during the summer months when they're really not necessary, and then allow them during the fall. I mean, other places have restricted them during the winter. I'm not sure that they're used that much in the winter, but then we
the snow blowers in the winter, I guess.
Yeah. Now the snow blowers,
the gas blowers are used as snow blowers.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's sort of a lower priority, but certainly in the summer when people are outdoors, people are using them to blow grass clippings off their sidewalks. That's when we should be, I think, quite firm that should be done with electric blowers. And then in the fall, when you're blowing leaves, okay, you can go back to gas. So
I like where you're going with this one. I think we need a path of migration to it. I think that you can propose certain easy changes or things that should be acceptable, and then continue, because I think we have to squeeze how many months a year, and then how much gas versus battery.
Right.
On these are all the variables.
Right.
You can work.
Right.
And I'm with you, which is I know your frustration, which is you'd think it's just common sense and decency that you not use your leaf blower, you know, when I'm sitting out there with my cocktail. And people just don't buy that. They just don't buy anyone leaning over their fence to tell them what they can do on their property. It's just a tough factor. And it's harder in New Canaan because a lot of people have accomplished a lot and have gotten here, and they feel, having accomplished a lot, that they have the right to do what they think is
right. So John, I will reach out to Robin and Carl, and maybe the four of us could set up a time to talk. Does that sound like a reasonable thing to do?
Sure. And I've actually been trading emails with Robin and voicemails. I've tried to call her a couple times and keep getting her voicemail.
I think she's on vacation.
She's on college tour right now. But let me also add this one more suggestion in terms of, you know, I call it getting the camel's head underneath the tent. Why not push for the Parks and Rec department to start moving to battery powered, more limited use of gas powered in their properties? Because I think that's a leadership role for the town. And that's another start, which is.
So we should get Tiger involved in that? Well,
it'll be a mixture of Tiger, John Howe, and Steve Benko. But I think your plea to the town council would be, why don't we start with our own municipal employees and worry about their health, and say, when are we migrating to more battery powered? What are the constraints? If they run large land care operations, what are their constraints in moving that way? How could we kind of do the right thing? Because I find it frustrating to visit a park and hear loud noise while I'm walking through the woods. So I'm just suggesting this, and I'm being a little open or creative, but I think that's a very good venue. And if the town can do it, and certain households say, I want my land care contractor to use battery powered equipment on my property.
There's one thing.
For my health and for my neighbors.
There's one thing you have to consider.
Yes.
And that is that if you're using battery power, you're not going to have as much time working. It won't last as long as your gas power. So you'll have to have several batteries with you. So as your charge runs out, you replace it with another one. Now you run into the value, the cost values that people are going to do. These are things you're going to face.
Well, I hear you, but Marty, I take your point. But when they come out with their leaf blower, there's also a 5-gallon gasoline tank that they need to refill. So there is an economics here, John, that I think you can also peel the onion on to say, would operating an electric leaf blower be as cost effective as a gas leaf blower over time? And so that if you come out with your land care truck, you have your leaf blower and a 5 backup pack of batteries that are charged overnight, and you're ready to slam them in at each property you go to. But
I just think when you make these recommendations, I just think when we make these recommendations, we should know what the other side is going to come up with as an objection. And so we should be prepared to answer that.
Yeah, and I think the argument has always been, you're putting the burden of economics. Where's the burden of economics of making this transition going to fall? And we're going to say, just like electric vehicles are what the future holds, electric leaf blowing, electric lawn mowing, more electric is where we ought to go, because it's quieter and it's better for the environment. And we need to look at it. And frankly, it's a good idea. And I think what we're just trying to do is, the substitution curve is there. We're just trying to accelerate the rate of substitution of battery versus gas, in your mind, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what, and I don't know if somebody could say, here's what a gas power mower sounds like. Here's what a electric blower sounds like. You know, it's a 40 decibel difference or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely, that data is out there.
Well, and that's how I think you present the argument with hard facts and say, no, we really are. We want to be conscious of the economic impact here. We don't think that all of a sudden everybody's gas leaf blower should be thrown away, but we do think that they need to start migrating, you know, because these leaf blowers go out anyway after a couple of years. They all wear out, and then as they migrate out, you migrate in with battery.
Right.
So I think we ended up with more of a brainstorming, but I do love the outcome of if we can get a motion drafted that the Conservation Commission will support. And in that drafting, it'll also preview to Town Council and Parks and Rec what we're trying to do. I think we have a better chance of success. And I know on Town Council that there are councilors who will support this idea and speak up for it, just like we have a selectman saying, I'm real concerned about the use of pesticides.
Right, exactly.
Concerned about noise.
Exactly. And pollution.
And pollution.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like though I will take my my motion off the agenda of the next town council meeting, and then we will I'll be in touch with them again later on after the conservation come up.
The timing is good to get on for September. August is a slow month.
Yeah, August wouldn't be a good month for it. So we'll have a goal of getting something ready for September, but we'll discuss it next month as well.
You know what, we'll do it in August ourselves, and you'll have something, you know, endorsed and voted upon by us to give it a little more momentum.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then if any other points, sorry, John, I don't mean to cut you off, but any other comments there?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. And last point, just for the commissioners, there will be a $6 million American Rescue Plan Act allocation to to the town of New Canaan. It's meant to be a coverage for revenue loss, and it's more tax-based than anything else. And I'm making the case to our first selectman and the town council chairman and whoever will listen that I feel about 1/3 of that should be allocated to open space or public space and sustainability issues. You know, things that greater town residents, more work at home residents, the need for better sustainability practices and the need for better public spaces are important variables. I had a really interesting discussion with Marty offline where he wanted to know about why don't we take that money and invest it and get a return. And I think he's right that we have to think about the whole $6 million and say, how do you make a return on it?
Right.
I think there is a return.
I have a thought on that.
Space. There is a return.
I have a thought on that.
Yep.
You have so many empty stores downtown that it's looking like we had a neutron bomb go off. We got the buildings there and there's nobody shopping. Now, I was wondering if there was a way, I was going to talk to Kevin about this, is there a way that we could work with some of the owners of the property to maybe jumpstart something to get some people in there, maybe help some merchants for a year or so, get these stores working, bring people back to town. I just think we could get a return on the investment. This is what I'm always looking for.
Well, Marty, I think
just when we do it immediately, but a long-term effect to get established people back into town.
Well, I think, Marty, that, I mean, it's a little beyond, I think, where the Conservation Commission could be, but I definitely think that the town could look at a real estate tax abatement program in support of new businesses. In other words, instead of saying, look, if you can take your rent down 25%, we can help a little bit with real estate tax abatement, cover some of that, and that may allow some ideas to generate. The difficulty with that is when you finally back off of it, are those businesses strong enough to keep going? You know,
well,
subsidized at the beginning, will it succeed?
And the Chamber of Commerce is probably, we need to certainly get them involved. I'm sure
and I think the Chamber of Commerce is looking very hard at this, and as you can imagine, if there is a potential, I won't call it a windfall or a reinjection of funds into the town, of 6 million, there's probably going to be $24 million of ideas or $48 million of ideas on how to take it.
Yeah.
But the point I wanted to make was that you can get a return on public space by citizen health, by citizen happiness, by people saying, hey, I left New York to come to New Canaan for its open spaces.
Right.
I've got a young family, and if you're a New Yorker with a young family, your life is your apartment and the park. That's what you do. You shuttle between the two in order to get outside and give the kids a little air, or take the dog out for a walk. Coming here and having public parks is a big plus, particularly because younger families may start in town before they eventually migrate out of town to greater.
What is this money entitled? What is it? The money coming, $6 million, under what program?
It's called the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It was passed by the Biden administration at the very, within the first few months as part of the economic recovery program. And it's going to deliver to the town general fund as much as $6 million. And that's not including any money. And the Board of Education will be getting funds as well. I'm not saying it's a windfall. I know that the town did lose revenues in parking in other areas. But what I am saying is this is an opportunity to invest in our public spaces and in sustainability. And on my public space suggestion, I'm at a point with saying, I think our Parks Department is understaffed. It is barely keeping pace with what's going on. It's tremendously reliant on not-for-profits to carry the ball for them. But the Parks Department needs more maintenance crew. The Irwin, Waveney, and Bristow could use wardens, or half a warden or a third of a warden, somebody who regularly walks the land to do things. So I think that there are ideas, and we're going to go into an idea phase on how to correctly allocate these funds. So I'm pushing in wherever direction I can to say, we're not asking for all of it. We just want a third, or we'd like to see a third directed towards these issues. Wow. We're very modest in our demands.
A modest 2 million.
Yeah.
You get a return on the investment. New money comes into town every year if you do that.
Yeah.
Not just a one-shot deal. Right. So that by investing.
That would be what you're recommending also is additional, jobs. That's what it's supposed to be getting more landscaping, more jobs in the town. So I think that's this recovery plan is supposed to do that.
Correct. So I wanted to share
the economy from both ends.
Right. So thanks, Linda. Thanks, Marty. I wanted to share that with you. And I will hopefully share that as well with our first selectman. I've been trying, and we'll continue to push there. Any conversations you have with your community and constituents, please share our thinking in that regard. And hopefully this video will get, this Zoom call will get observed by more as well. So
yeah.
With that, I'd like to move to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I said.
All in favor?
Yeah,
meeting adjourned.
Unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So much. Pam, thank you.